that record button. Welcome to today's mindset call, which is entitled What is the Root? Hopefully, you've seen that with the information that's been sent out to you. What is the root? And we are here on another Monday mindset to really dig deep into the root. And those of you know that I have been stuck in the book of Samuel now for about 9-10 weeks. I cannot get out. But I had a revelation today, which I'm going to share with you, and we're going to speak about it from a place of 3 points. And we're going to speak about it from a place of pain, promise, and purpose. Pain, promise, and purpose. And in particular, we're going to be looking at relationships. We're going to be looking at the sounds, the voices that we are listening to as we are going into a new season of our life, a new month, a new year, a new season for ourselves. And you know, I was studying the book of Samuel, as you guys know, and we were looking at how Samuel was born from pain, from the pain of his mother, Hannah. Now, those of you that were on the call before, you will understand the root of this, right? And the root of this was Hannah was being teased by Peninnah. You remember that story, right? So Hannah was being teased by Peninnah that she couldn't have a baby. She couldn't give birth. And Peninnah was having all these babies all the time, and Hannah seemed to be barren. And despite Hannah's husband telling her it was okay, I don't see you as less of a wife. You are okay. Even if you haven't had the baby, I don't want you to compare to Peninnah, who's my other wife, who seems to be having babies left, right, and center. I still love you, and it doesn't make you any less of a wife. Now, no matter what he had said to her, it still didn't shift her. How many of you have ever had someone say you're amazing, you've got gifts, you've got talents, but deep down on the inside of you, you don't really believe it, so you don't activate it, you don't move into it. And so Hannah didn't do anything. She carried on until one day, the word says that Peninnah pushed her that little bit further. And that's what pushed her to now go and pray and beg God to give her a baby. And not only that, she made a promise. There was a promise there. If you allow me to have a baby, I will give this baby back to you. And I promise it will be for your glory. How many of us have ever been in a situation where we've been kind of, I wouldn't say low. Well, for me, I was on my rebuild. So y'all know I was low. You're so low, you start making promises to God that you don't even know how you'll keep. Mine was like, Lord, if you get me up of this floor, I'm going to be celibate. I was like, Lord, I promise I'm going to be celibate. I'm going to hold down. I don't even know how. I don't even know how that was going to be possible. You start making promises in exchange for what it is that you want, right? And so that's the lineage of Samuel. So Samuel's now born, and we know that he goes on and anoints David, whatever. Here's what I want to say to you, and I'm going to be a bit controversial with what I say next, and I don't want you guys to judge me. But for those of you that read the Bible, has there ever been any parts of the Bible that you felt like is not as exciting and you skip those bits? Okay, I'm just talking about myself now. So there's parts when you reset and you say to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to start reading the Bible again. And some of us start at Genesis because that's normally where you go to. And you start at Genesis, and then you get to the point after Cain and Abel. And then you get to the point where it says, and this person begat that person, and that person begat that person, and there's all these names that you just can't even what's the word? You can't even pronounce. And you kind of skip to the end of the sentence, like let's get past the begats so I can get to the meat and potatoes, so I can get to the juice. Oh, that's just me, I confess. But one day the Spirit convicted me to actually read it and start writing it down and look at the names and look at the connections. And I asked myself, why would these words be written in this scripture? What if it was just boring? Why would it be there in the first place? There must be a purpose why it's there. And the purpose is is showing the lineage. I want us to understand this, the connection, the lineage between each person and the stories that link us to God. So there's a reason why those things have been written. There's a reason why it's there. And so it got me thinking now in regards to the root of some of the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I understand that Samuel was born, the root of Samuel's birth was from Hannah's pain. Hannah called out to God and gave a promise that she would give Samuel back to God should she have this baby. He's now born and she fulfills the promise, and she gives practically from Samuel's young. He's off with a priest Eli and he starts to learn philosophies of life. He starts to set values and foundations of how he's going to go about living his life, to the point where he gets to an age where God speaks to him to go and anoint the new coming king, which is David. Are we still here? Are you following the what I'm saying to us right now, right? Because when I'm listening to this and I'm seeing this, I'm like, okay, Nikki, how does this relate to us? How does this relate to where I'm going and to my goals and to what's going on? And so here I am hearing and I'm studying this stuff, and I'm like, okay, so David was David was here one minute. He was tending to sheep in his family home when Samuel knocked that door. Jesse didn't even put him forward when he said, hey, look, I'm here to anoint the new king. His own father had him tending to sheep. He was overlooked. He put all the other children in front. He was like, no, maybe this is the one. This is the one. We've been here before. We know this, right? But he was in one environment overlooked. Then Samuel, the one that was born from pain and from the promise and from the purpose, to come and give him that anointing, to anoint him, to let him know that actually you may be here right now tending to sheep, but actually there's a bigger calling for your life. There is a bigger purpose for your life. Don't mistake where you are right now to where it is that God actually wants you to be. In fact, I want to let you know, I'm here to let you know that this is not all, that there's more to you than this. How many of you have ever gone through a season where you're thinking, is there more to me than this? And the word is saying to me that every time there's about to be some kind of elevation or some kind of next level up, there seems to be someone that comes with a word. In fact, it goes a little bit further, almost like a mentorship, almost like some kind of father figure, some wisdom that leads you into your calling, leads you into that next phase of your life. And so you have Samuel coming to anoint David. You also have, of course, we've got Naomi and Ruth. Now, we all know, right, the story about Ruth and Boaz, and we hear how, Naomi instructs Ruth what to do. She tells her to go and, she tells her to put on her perfume and go to his feet and all of that. You guys know what I'm talking about, yeah? I'm jumping the story just because I want to get to the point. At no time at all did Ruth say, Naomi, are you sure? Naomi, maybe I should do it a different way. She trusted Naomi's word because of what? The root, who Naomi was. Now, I want us to really think about this. Remember, and I'm looking at the correlations between this. Naomi, right? Let's not forget. So Naomi, what happened to her? Who remembers what happened to Naomi? Not only did she lose her husband, she lost her sons, right? So Naomi had gone through extreme levels of what? Pain. Extreme levels. Naomi had gone through extreme levels of pain. Isn't it interesting that the people that go through the extreme levels of pain seem to have wisdom, seem to be the ones that are doing the mentoring or doing the advising? Because I don't know about you, I can only talk about myself, but there's a lot of lessons in pain. I'm looking at the correlation and I'm like, okay, Nehemiah was in pain. Nehemiah, before he went to rebuild the walls, he was grieved. He was like, Lord, I can't just sit here whilst the people are suffering. There seems to be this thing around pain. You see, sometimes we're so adverse to pain. Like, why do I have to go through this? Why am I going through all this? But I'm looking and I'm like, hold on now. If I look at the root, the lineage of Naomi, she was married and then, he went to the battlefield, died, whatever. Then she lost her children, her two sons. She was dealing with also, sometimes when we really look at the root, she could have been a woman that said to Ruth and the other, I can't remember her name, the other, I'll call her baby mother, but she could have said, stay with me. Because she's lonely now. She has no one. But she's like, no, go. And Ruth said, the other baby mother, someone can tell me her name, but the Ruth was like, no, I'm not leaving you. I'm going to stay by your side. The other one was like, yeah, she remarried, she went. And Ruth was like, no, I'm going to stick by you. There's something about wisdom. There's something about being around people that have wisdom that can help you to unlock the next level of your life. That's it. There you go. Orpha. Thank you, Nee. Right? And so you've got Naomi advising Ruth, even though she had gone through some intense amount of pain, but was saying to her, this is what you need to do. And Ruth, listen. Ruth took the advice. Ruth said, okay, I'm going to go. And she did it to a T, and we already know she got her Boaz, whatever. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, who are you around that off their word, no hidden agendas, no manipulation, no trust issues, but hand on heart, you have that person around you that wants the best for you, that will say to you, this is where you need to go. This is what you need to do. And no second guessing, no looking back, no wondering, okay, should I just do half? Sometimes you get an instruction, you do a little bit of the instruction, but you don't do the full instruction. This is full obedience. And you've got the you've got Samuel, someone remind me, right? Samuel now is advising Saul and telling Saul to go and do what? He says, go and destroy everything. And Saul comes back and says, yeah, I destroyed everything, but he didn't destroy everything. He kept a little bit. You guys remember the story? I'm pulling stories from stories now, so you guys can help me out. And what was the word that was said? The word was, obedience is far better than sacrifice. This to me tells me, okay, that a lot of the time we want to do things our way. I was speaking to somebody today who said to me, Nikki, this is the outcome that I want. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus. I'm in my comfort zone, but I'm happy to be in my comfort zone. And this is what I want to do. And I said, I want to understand your philosophy behind that statement. Where does that come from? You guys are like, okay, Nikki, where are you going with this? What I'm saying is the next season of your life, you're going to not only have to ask yourself who you're listening to and what you're connected to, but you're going to have to ask yourself is what is the root of what it is that you're listening to and who it is that you're listening to. I realize I've been doing something over the last few months and it's just come naturally to me and I don't know why. But every time I meet somebody new, one of the first questions I ask them is, oh, who's your mentor? Who are you listening to? And if I hear them say, oh, I don't have a mentor, I ask myself a question. Is it through lack of obedience, or is it that they haven't found the person, or they're not actively looking? Who are they under? What is the kind of, who is holding them accountable? That is a telltale sign to me when I'm making relationship. In fact, it's become it's almost like one of those boundaries. It's a standard for me to check somebody's obedience levels and also the way that they think. Because there's a certain way that we have to think when you are striving for what we call quote unquote success. And what I'm looking at here is the root. Who is it that you're following? This is why you've got to be careful who you take pictures with. Because one photograph with somebody whose root isn't right, and that could eject you from an opportunity because somebody is looking at you connected to that person. And if that person's root isn't correct, what happens is opportunities then fall away from you. And then we hear people say, well, Nikki, what is for me is for me. Ain't nobody can take that away from me. What is for me is for me. And I'll agree, but I'll also disagree. Because the great thing I know that our God has given us is he's given us choice. He's given us the ability to choose. And so what I want to say to us also, this obedience thing is, it's not, okay, Nikki, where has he given us the ability to choose? Lot's wife? He said, go and don't look back. What was for her didn't end up being for her because guess what? She looked back, didn't she? We cannot ride this new season. We cannot just ride off of certain things to comfort us in our comfort zone so that we can stay in certain seasons. Now, why do we stay in certain seasons? Comfortability, the fear of missing the old, the fear of missing out in case we think that season can get better. Why do we stay the same? Fear of going into a new situation. Why do we stay the same? Worried about what people think. Why do we stay the same? Why do we not move? We say we're shy. We don't think we're good enough. All these things. We maybe don't have the resources, the money, all of this stuff. But the root is, the reason why we don't do these things is because we're listening to ourselves. Or we're surrounded by people that don't hold us accountable to where it is that God wants us to go, to tell us, you need to go and do this. Similarly to when Naomi said to Ruth, go to Boaz, go to his house. No matter how uncomfortable, scared she might have been, she went. The question is in the season that you're going into, who are you genuinely listening to and what's the root of that person? I know the root of Samuel was guided under Eli. From he was born, he was pushed under Eli. He was surrounded by this priest. When I'm looking at I'm looking at certain things in my life, and I'm going to be transparent with you because I'm like, okay, cool. What's the root? And I said, and I was telling my grandma, and I was like, my mom, never been married. My grandma's marriage didn't work. Great granny never worked. I said, what is it in the family? The women in the family. My auntie just got divorced. I'm looking at the women in the family and I'm saying there is a lineage. This is the root, a lineage of no marriage, no successful marriage, successful relationship, a lineage of the women from as far back as I can go. I do not see a successful married woman in my lineage of family. Now, those of you know I was married the first time, and that didn't work. And so the enemy has worked through generations to destroy the women in my family when it comes to marriage. And so here we go. So I'm starting to understand the root, the philosophy. So now I've remarried. Here we go. Are you guys ready for this revelation? Because some of you are not going to be ready for this revelation. Now I've remarried. And now I have a husband that is in alignment with the purpose that God has for my life. If we have an argument, a disagreement, if we are not seeing eye to eye on certain things, this does not last for very long. Do you understand why? Because we understand that the enemy's plan is to destroy marriage. The enemy's plan is there is a target on my back because I am that generational curse breaker in my generations. And so whenever I'm having a conversation with my husband, whenever we are overcoming or in any kind of, we don't even argue like that. But if we're having a disagreement, we're so quick to say, you know what, this doesn't even matter. Let's keep it moving because we understand the root of our relationship is far bigger than day-to-day conversations or misunderstanding. We understand that what we are doing as a unit is far greater than us misinterpreting who was supposed to wash up yesterday. We understand that the lineage that we have, the lineage that has gone before me, there is a war in the spirit for our marriage because of what it means. It is breaking curses. I understand that there's been a lineage of mothers and daughters not getting on. Me and my mama out of the blue stopped dealing with me, block me, delete me, everything. Why? Mental health issues. My mum and her mum don't talk. My nan and her mum never spoke. I said, in the name of Jesus, I'm going to make sure me and my daughters, you see, I understand what the enemy wants to do, and I understand how the enemy works. And so I have to move differently because I understand the root of this thing. I understand how the enemy will come slippery like a slithering snake in the Garden of Eden to trick me out of the destiny that God has for my life. And so because I understand this, I have to move different because I understand where God is taking me and how he's using me as a vessel, not just me, my relationships, my communication. He's using this to be able to be used as a testimonial, as an altar destroyer, as something that is going to tear down strongholds. I understand I cannot fight in flesh because the war is not about flesh and blood. And so me entering into petty arguments, me challenging certain things, it means nothing because I understand the bigger purpose. I understand the root. What am I saying? I'm saying that some of us are so surface level. Some of us are so focused on being right. We're so focused on staying in our comfort zone. We've lost the root of it, that we are called. We are a called nation. We're royalty. We're here to break down the assignments of the enemy. From the beginning of the time, the enemy was able to trick. How is it that Adam and Eve had everything? How is it that Adam and Eve had everything, and the enemy was able to highlight the one thing they couldn't have? How was that possible? And so instead of focusing on the abundance, instead of focusing on the opportunity, instead of focusing on the beautiful garden, the way that they had everything, the enemy was able to make Eve focus on the one thing that she didn't have access to. And the funniest part of it was, what did he do? He got into her mind. What has the enemy been telling you that's got into your mind that you have to break? What has the enemy been telling you that's got you moving a little way different? Because when I can always understand when people don't understand certain laws of life by the way they react to stuff, by the way they deal with things, by the way, some people are, they say they're petty or, they're tit for tat. Why would you do all that when you're just hurting yourself? Why would I not step out of my comfort zone when I understand the assignment over my life? Why wouldn't I make sure that we don't go to bed on an argument? Why wouldn't I make sure that I am loving on my children, speaking life over my daughters when I understand that the enemy is after my family? But to prove a point, the enemy will say, yeah, you called last time, don't call again. You were the one that made up last time, so don't do that again. You were the one that did this, so don't do that again. The enemy will have your mind. The enemy will tell you to hurt the very same people that are there to bless you. Can you imagine the enemy's pushing in your face? Pushing here, take this fruit. And this fruit is about to kill you. Let me tell you something else that I had the revelation for. And I know the Bible talks a lot about, we know them by their fruits. We know them by their fruits. But here's something that I will say to you is this. Before you just look at the fruit, understand the root. Because listen, don't ever get it twisted and think that there won't be some people that have particular nice looking juicy fruit, but the root needs to be vetted also. Because not every fruit should be eaten. And listen, I don't even know if we're going to carry on this call. Not every fruit should be eaten. I'm looking at my lineage again, and I'm seeing that Wealth is a problem in my generation. From as far back as I can remember, no one has a successful business in my family. No one. From as far back as I can remember. And I said, oh my God, okay. God, you're really giving it to me. You're really assigning me with this. You're really telling me that this is the assignment. And here's the thing, I'm there listening. I'm listening to the scriptures and I'm like, okay, God. And at first you're David, sometimes. Here's the epiphany. And how many of you have ever felt overlooked, right? And we have this thing where you're going to go from overlooked to overbooked and all of that, right? So you feel like you're David. You're around your family. Nobody really hypes you up. Nobody really sees your gift. They got you tending to sheep when you should be reigning, and you're there, and you're like, you know what? I got to get into a new environment because the family, the friends that I grew up with, they don't really understand the gift. They still treat me like I was that person growing up. I get it. And now you're working on your confidence. And now you're working on being who God has called you to be. And now you're working on stepping out and launching and growing and building relationships for you. For you. And then something shifts. And then I heard God say to me, Nikki, you're looking at the book all wrong. There's a reason why it's not called the book of David. It's called the book of Samuel. Now, remember, you could, if we're using that analogy, we could think, well, why isn't it called the book of Hannah? Because it started with her, if we're going down the root of it. But no, it was the book of Samuel. Why is it Samuel? I asked God. Why isn't it David? Because most of the book is about David and he becoming king and all of that. Why is the book not called David? Why is it called Samuel? You know why it's called Samuel? Because I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, Samuel anointed David. I'm almost seeing that the highlight is not just about David becoming king. It's the root of this thing, saying that some of you think you're David, but you're actually Samuel. You're called, your testimony, your gift, your purpose is similar to Naomi, where you're called to put your hand on another person, community, network, people, family, and you are going to anoint a new set of people. You're going to anoint some people to go and live out in the way God says they're going to live. You have a Samuel anointing. You think it's David. You think you're the one that's supposed to reign king. You think you're the one that's supposed to be that superstar. Here's what the Bible told me. The Bible told me that when David was eventually made king, Samuel was dead. So you mean to say to me that he was born for this, but he never got to see. He never got to see the actual evidence of his prophecy, of his man, of him laying hands saying, you're going to be king. He wasn't even alive. How about to say that when we break these curses, the lineage, the generations after are going to say it was because of great granny Nikki. I know that now I'm looking back. Great Granny Nikki was the first one to have a successful marriage. Great Granny Nikki was the first one to have good relationships with her daughters. Great Granny Nikki was the first. I need you to say Great Granny Gladys, Great Granny Audrey, Great Granny Adina, Great Granny Danielle. How about when you start to procrastinate, when you start to second guess what God has for you, when you start to allow the world to convince you to go over there and do this and that, when you start to focus on money instead of your purpose, when you start to want to get tempted to do different things, you're reminded that great Granny Danielle has an assignment on her life, has an assignment for this. This has to come to pass in order to break these generational cycles, in order to break these generational habits. But let's get back to the root. Who are you listening to? Who is your Naomi? Who is your Samuel? Have you checked their root? Do you really? Because, and here's the thing. If I look at the root and I see my root and I'm like, yo, I know that's not that's not what I want to follow. That's not that I have to break it now and I've got to change it. If I'm not careful, if I'm not strategic, if I'm not on purpose, what will I allow to happen is my decisions come from a place of pain. Now, we know that certain decisions in pain can be good, but we also know that certain decisions of pain can lead to destruction, can lead to death. This is why you have to move by the Spirit. Are you ready for this, guys? In order to break the cycle, you got to be able to, the Bible talks about this is not a carnal thing. You've got to be able to move by the Spirit. What do I mean by that? It means that sometimes it will look a certain way in the world. It will look crazy to the world. I remember earning, 25,000 a month. And the word of God, I heard God loud say, leave it. Leave it behind and go. Now, to think, let me put some context behind this. I've grown up in poverty. I've worked all my life to be successful. 2 years prior, I'm writing down, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm earning 25,000. I'm writing down, I'm open and receptive to whoever God would bless me with, who's going to help me to achieve the purpose over my life. I'm writing this thing down. I'm asking God for it. I'm praying for it. The money starts to come. I'm literally praying now that I've changed it to 100,000 a month. And God says, walk away from it and start again. And I'm like, hold up, God. Are you sure? Like, how that work? How would it be that you told me that I'm here to break generational curses? I'm here to have wealth in my family. I'm here to make sure that my family's good, my people's good, but also other nations and generations are going to be blessed by me. That I'm going to be setting up schools, that I'm going to be going and blessing people. I'm going to be doing all this stuff. And now you're telling me to give up the money? Now because to the world, it looks crazy. To the world, it doesn't make no sense. To the world, you're going to struggle. To the world, you could lose your house. To the world, you could go on the poverty line. Marriages break down because of arguments over money. You lose friends because of money sometimes. All of a sudden, all the people that owed you money, they're on your radar now because you're on the bread line. All of a sudden, relationships start breaking down. God says, walk away from this. Walk away empty-handed. And don't you dare look back. And I'm like, God, I don't know. I've got a certain lifestyle. I'm enjoying this life. Come on now, can we be real? How many times has God told you to do something? God's told you to do something, but it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. It's going to take you to trust him fully. Now, the world would say, and this is why you got to make sure you're hearing from God now, right? The world would tell you that's crazy. You got bills to pay. That's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Let me tell you what doesn't make any sense. You know, when they were about to kill Jesus on the cross, and I was looking at this, and it was a very strange, let me see if I can look it up. It was a very strange statement and a very strange thing. And I don't know if you've spotted this. He said, now I want to get the right words. Yeah, let me look this up. Let's see. It was something along the lines of, where is it? It was something along the lines of, where is it? That God was pleased that it was going to glorify God and that it is finished. We know that it is finished part, but I want to get the exact words about glorifying God. Let me see. Hmm. glorifying God. Hold on. Let me search for this scripture. Okay. There you go. I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. God the Father spoke to God the Son, Jesus, and told him that he approved Jesus's work, saying that Jesus's work and work glorified him. Right? And I'm going to get the exact quote. Because the word glory, I mean, it's very strange. Like, how is it that you are about to go through death? And we all know how painful that death was, right? We know that that was one of the most excruciating deaths ever recorded in history. We're talking about, and I don't want to get too, deep with this, but we're talking about public display of ruins. And in the midst of him going to end everything according to man is ending, he is saying, right, we're here to glorify God. Like, this is a glorious moment. Like, how to the world, things look like it's over. Things look like it's crazy. And he is saying, let's celebrate. This is glorified. Like, we're going to glorify God. This is a moment. This is the moment. How is it that what looks like to man is destruction? What looks like to man is it's over. Danielle, it looks like to man, oh my God, you're homeless. How on earth? What's going on? Not knowing that God's about to get the glory for that situation. Not knowing that although it may look like it's over, although it may be painful, although it may be, listen, salvation came off the back of that pain. We are now here on earth living on the back of that pain. But to man, it looks crazy. To man, they were throwing stones. They were calling him all sorts. His mum was on the side, bawling her eyes out. His own mum. The world looks like you're nuts. How can you be in the heights of your career? How can you be doing all of these great things and decide to walk away from all of it to start again? I want to say this to you, and I want to say it in the nicest way. Stop playing around with God's work. Stop playing around with what he's told you to do, because it's far bigger than you. It's far bigger than the confidence issues. It's far bigger than what other people think. As you move into a new season, as you move into this new year, as the world is going to start saying new year, new me, I want you to evaluate your lineage. Evaluate the things that you know you have to break from your lineage. Evaluate who you're going to be listening to in this time, not just their fruit, but the root. And be obedient in that. And watch God move. In the most scariest times where obedience is required. Listen to this. Job was getting battered left, right, and center. Family dead, crop dying out, everything. And if he listened to his wife, who was like, yeah, curse God. Who are you listening to in this season? What are they telling you? What are their philosophies? What are their values? You see, this is a time where we got to be very, very careful of who we associate with. Leverage. Who are you leveraging and who is leveraging you? Who are you connected to and who's connected to you? And how are you going to be able to go and fulfill that purpose over your life? It's got to be obedience. It's got to be obedience. And how do we maintain obedience? It's through accountability. I have an accountability partner many accountability partners for different things, but when it comes to sisterhood and business and doing things in accordance, I have Mrs. Angela Cruikshank, and their mentorship, Pastor and Dr. Luke Kwamina. I have when it comes to marriage, Auntie Anne. And when I look at the root of those individuals, when I look at the seeds and where they're getting their foundations and their values from, I'm like, okay, those individuals can sow into my life. Those individuals, I am. Here's the thing as well, you have to be that selective. Someone said to me the other day, well, Nikki, are you only friends with Christians? No, I have all different types of friends. I have all different types of friends. But here's the thing, my foundation and my philosophy comes from the word. So the people that speak into my life must have that same value and foundation. Otherwise, they can't speak into my life. I'm sorry, I'm very cutthroat and serious about that. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. You know what I heard the other day? And this is not me bashing any kind of like religion or anything like that. But I don't know if you guys know this. Let me tell you a key difference between one of the books that I'm going to share with you right now. So, do you know in the Bible, and you guys can look this up, it tells us not to withhold sex. You guys heard that, right? You shouldn't be withholding sex unless you're fasting. Have you guys heard that in the scripture? I'm going off on a tangent, but we're going to close in a minute. You guys heard that? Let me know. Let me know if you've heard that before. Right? It's there. It's written. If you haven't seen it, go look for it. Right? I see a few yeses. Do you know in the Quran, it says a woman cannot withhold sex from her man, but the man can withhold sex from the woman. Did you know that? Go check that out. It's a thing. It's a thing. Now, I can't get married advice from someone who is reading a different philosophy in marriage than I am. Because now, imagine if I'm getting advice from Auntie Anne and Anton is getting his advice from his Muslim friend at work. And his Muslim friend is like, yeah, you know what I do? I am not giving my wife no sex because we've held it from her. Punish her. That's what you need to. And he starts to follow the man at work. And all of a sudden, our marriage starts to break down because I'm like, yo, what's going on? What's happening? Not knowing that there's advice, there is a root to behavior. Have you ever seen people that you used to get on with, they start moving different? Have you ever seen that before? Like out of the blue, people start moving different. And you're like, we've not had an argument. We've not had any problems. They've not been bad to me. I've not been bad to them. And all of a sudden they're moving funny. You know why they're moving funny? There's root behind the scenes, something that you don't know about, someone that doesn't like you. Someone that they're hanging around with, or some words have been spoken that you are unaware of, is now changing the dynamic of that relationship with you. They're saying something about you. They're talking about you. They're under different laws. They're under different, not laws, values and philosophies that they are now in, which now impacts the relationship that they have with you. This is why I have to be careful with the associations that I have. Because here's the thing, we can have a great relationship, but then all of a sudden you start talking differently, acting differently. One of the things people know that I am, I'm proud to say I'm a saleswoman, but what I don't do is I don't missell. I sell things that people need. I will never missell to someone. I have a conscience and I have something in me that has to do things spiritually correct. You guys know what I'm talking about? I cannot profit and lose my soul. I cannot profit and knowing that I'm hurting people in the background. That's not something I can live with. Some people can, I can't do it. And so when I begin to see people start to do things untoward, guess what I have to do? Take myself away. I look at the root. I look at people's values. Is this the values that I want to align myself to? Are these the people that I want to connect myself to? Are these if this got out into the newspaper, would I be proud of this or would I be hanging my head in shame? That's how I evaluate my decisions. What would God do? Then I'm going to check with my accountability and my mentors. Is this something you think, And then after, I'm going to ask myself, if this was released in the papers, would I be happy how this is read? That will tell you if it's something that you should do or not. And I do this check all the time because I want to make sure that I'm living the way God wants me to live. And no one can't buy me. No one can't offer me opportunities. No one can't use money. And you see, the moment I decided to walk away from that 25K, you guys know what happened? I get a phone call and them saying, okay, we're going to give you 100K to stay. The enemy will up the stakes to see if you really mean it. And me and my husband have this joke all the time. He was like, so we can't stay for 1 month. I'm like, no, we're not staying for any months. We're leaving. Because the minute I touch that money, it's black money. The minute I allow that seed, remember, it's root now. So anything that comes off of the back of that money, guess what happens? It's now part of the lineage. And anything, ill-gotten gains, the world will call it, but anything that is not on a foundation, on a standard, anything built on lies, cheating, and stealing is of the enemy. It is devilish. It is witchcraft. And I don't want to be associated with that. Who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Who's holding you accountable to that? Or is it chase the money, chase the bag? Money is important, yes, but not in exchange for your soul. Money is a resource. Not all money is good money. And it's the same when it comes to marriage advice. It's the same when it comes to, you have family situations, who you talk to in those family situations. Some people will just encourage you to cuss out your family, divorce, and all. You have to know who you're speaking to in this season when you're growing, because guess what? Everything works together. I want to tell you something that's really exciting is I'm going to be doing a retreat next year called I Am Whole. I am whole. And it's about the whole woman. So it's not just focused on the finances, but it's focused on, the mind, the body, the spirit, retraining your mind on some of the old paradigms that we have to destroy. Some of the things our parents taught us, some of the things, and really mashing those things up spiritually, but also knowing how to move in the real world. Because some of us know scripture, but we don't know how to implement it. And some of us, we know how to implement stuff, but we don't know spiritually the foundations so that we can actually keep what it is that we implement. And so I've got a retreat coming next year called I Am Whole, which is really going to help us to be balanced. We talk about the Proverbs 31 woman, but to be balanced, to be whole in our mind, our body, our spirit, our soul. And I'm so excited about that because God has given me an even new revelation about how to run that retreat. And so I'm saying all this because I know that where God is taking you next is bigger and greater than anywhere else he's taken you before. But you've got to be ready. There's going to be tests. The enemy will come and it will dangle. It will dangle shiny toys in front of your face to get you to sin against yourself, to get you to go into the realm, back into some of those generational curses, some of those generational habits that get you right back into the trap like Adam and Eve. And I want to encourage you today to stay woke in this season. Keep your eyes and ears open. Listen to the root. Don't just take, when you see them scammers, I saw the Jamaican Prime Minister put up a post on his page today about scammers. The scammers are hungry right now. Christmas is coming up. Don't just hear the words, hear the root, hear the soul, hear what is actually happening. Someone tells you, give me 10,000 and tomorrow you'll have 100,000. You got to ask yourself, does this stuff make sense? Is it making sense what they're saying? Or is it just speaking music to my ears to get me to part with my hard-earned money? A lot of people are scammers. And, the robbers are not burglars now kicking off your door at night when you're not in. The robbers are digital. You can't even see some of them sometimes. And so we got to be careful who we're listening to. Retrain your mind. Re-ask yourself, who am I going to listen to in this season and how am I going to do it? So homework as we wrap up this call. Number one, I want you to look at your lineage. And I want you to find 2 or 3 things that maybe you spot that you want to break or that you believe you're called to break. I want you to look at a couple of things that maybe you say you want to keep. Is there anything that you do want to keep from that lineage? What are some of the things, that your parents maybe did that you think, okay, I want to keep that, keep that going, right? One of the things I laugh about with my kids is the whole rice and peas on a Sunday, okay? Like there's some things that are in us that I don't think will come out anytime soon. But there's some things that are in us that are not, that are detrimental to purpose. So I want you to look at your lineage. And then I want you to ask yourself, what do you want to change? What are the things that you really want to change for your children's children's children? And then ask yourself, who's going to help you? Who's going to hold you accountable to that you're actually going to listen to? And I'm going to say that because I was speaking to one of the good sisters of mine today, and I said, sis, the truth is I coach a lot of people, but I don't mentor a lot of people, because a lot of people want to talk, but they don't actually want to walk. And it's a tough reality that we like to do a lot of talking. It sounds good when it comes out of our mouth. But the reality is what I'm talking about is hard. It's hard when the devil is, waving shiny toys in your face. It's hard when there's opportunity for you to take, what I'm talking about, early gratification. It's hard when there's things right there that look shiny, but I tell you this, they have residual effects. And you may not see the damage straight away, but it does show up later on in life. And so when I talk about what you're actually going to do, you now have to find someone who's going to hold you accountable to that. But you've got to really ask yourself, do I want to change, or do I just like talking about changing? Do I really want something different for my life? Am I really so tied to the same old, listening to the same people, being in the same environment? Or has my season now come to a point where I need to listen to someone that can really get me to where I want to go? I have to be spiritually mature enough to know when to stop listening to myself, because the enemy likes to bring that spirit of confusion every single time. I have to say to myself, I'm going to submit under some kind of mentorship. I've got to submit under some kind of accountability that's going to help me to stop self-sabotaging, to stay in my comfort zone, and to really, really grow. Who is that person or persons that's going to do that? I want you to evaluate that. Do not go into the new season without a plan. Do not go into the new season without somebody who you can really hold yourself accountable with, and you give them permission to tell you the real, raw truth. You give them permission to be honest and say, sis, you're slacking. The real truth is you're slacking. You're making excuses. The real truth is you have everything you need. You don't need all the things that you're saying you need. You actually just need to move. The real talk is that it may sound like it's a bit of a risk that you leave, but the thing is, it's even worse of a risk if you stay. God has told you to do something, do it. And it is just that simple. How you do it, the strategy and the wisdom behind it, that's where your mentorship and accountability comes into play. So I'm so excited for not only the generational curses that's about to be broken, but the way that we're going to move in wisdom. Now we know the enemy's devices, the way that we're not going to self-sabotage. The enemy, if the enemy knows that you're an angry person, he will put in front of you things that will make you angry, that will want to, I heard someone say, oh, they triggered me. No one should be able to trigger you because you have self-control. If the enemy can still trigger you, that means there's work that needs to be done. And so walk into this season fully aware. Like the moment I mentioned the Come As You Are event, I knew that there would be certain attacks. I'm almost prepared for it. I'm almost prepared for some people to drop off. I'm almost prepared for God to just bring new people. I'm so prepared because I understand that the calling is so big. The enemy is, of course, mad. Of course, the enemy is mad that we're doing this. Of course, the enemy is mad. How dare her say that she's going to give up all this and start again? How dare her say she's going to do left, right, and center and go off and live purpose? How dare her? So here's what we're going to do. Let's see if we can dangle some old stuff in front of her. Let's see if we can get a guy to chat her up and see if she's going to fall for it. Let's see if we can tease her and annoy her on social media and start saying negative things and see if she's going to blow up and lose herself and sin herself. Let's see if we can make her and her husband so tired to make them argue and see if they're going to mess up. We are already aware of it. We're so prayed up, it's unbelievable. I'm before I close, I'll tell you this is real transparent. Me and my husband, we have Thursday is a very busy day for both of us. And one of the things we realize is that we're so tired on Thursdays, we haven't got the energy to talk to each other. And so what we said is, listen, Thursday, just give each other grace. Anton be talking. I ain't even hearing what he's saying. Like, I don't even know what he said. I said, baby, it's Thursday. I love you. I just respond with that because I ain't heard nothing else he be saying. And he give me grace. He's like, baby, you look tired. I said, you look tired. I said, you look how I feel. Thursdays is a date where we just know if the communication is bad, we just gonna give you. This is how smart you have to be because the enemy will use things to want to come in between. I share that with you just to show you everyone has their thing. You know, you may not notice it. You just gotta be aware of it and be one step ahead of the game. So with that being said, I'm so excited.